Okay, there we go. Okay, welcome everybody. Today we're going to have a lovely webinar by our esteemed guest, Dr. James Takalani. I'm going to read his bio. Dr. Takalani is the head of Department of Psychology at the University of Venda. He has worked in higher education for over 17 years and supervised master's and PhD students. His research interests are indigenous knowledge systems, bereavement, psychological assessment, and social issues. He is the project head for the Ubuntu Mental Health and COVID-19 subcommittee for the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Venda. Dr. Takalani is currently serving as a co-opted member in Education, Training, and Registration Committee for the Health Professions Council of South Africa for the Board of Psychology. He is an additional member of the African Journal of Psychological Assessment, and he is currently serving as an external examiner for master's and PhD students at universities across South Africa. The presentation today is an introduction to trustworthiness in qualitative research. Thank you so much, Dr. Takalani, for being here. We are really humbled to have you, and all the best with your presentation. You may display your presentation. Just some housekeeping. We ask that everybody switch off the audio and the video. I'm also going to switch my audio and video off, and only the presenter will be sharing his presentation, and he may switch off his video as well. Thank you so much everyone for being here.
Thank you very much, Fatima and colleagues, and everyone else who has joined in to be part and parcel of this webinar. I have been introduced, yes, I am Dr. James Takalani, and I'm just coming up with an angle in terms of explaining the different aspects of trustworthiness in qualitative research, just like as this topic has been presented widely by exponents in research, such as Creswell, such as Politenberg, such as Lincoln and Kuba. They have written a lot about trustworthiness in quantitative studies. So I just took my time, to look at different, at all those aspects, and have my own understanding, so that at least when I share my understanding, some of you would be able to do it the right way, or would be able to understand it better than before. And I'm not saying that I'm coming up here with the only version of explaining these things. There are different versions, as I've already indicated, that there are different authors who have written a lot about aspects of trustworthiness in qualitative research. You might have seen in my short biography that I have traveled some journey in terms of research and research supervision, and I've seen a lot of errors that students do or commit as they address this part of trustworthiness of the study. In many instances, you would find that students when they have to respond to this aspect in a proposal, they would indicate that they would only focus on explaining what those aspects are, without necessarily relating or showing how those different aspects will be addressed in their respective studies, which is a problem. So I've tried to have different meetings with the students that I happen to be supervising, just for them to take me through this. And then it was pathetic at times, and I had to come in and try to give them my angle, and it was then that they were able to do the right thing. So you will agree that in the world in which we are living today, we are depending on knowledge. So knowledge has to be produced, and for knowledge to be used, knowledge content that is put there for public consumption, it should be factual. It should have been scientifically proven. It should show some kind of trail how this information was produced from the beginning up to the time when people have taken decisions based on the findings. So it is equally important for that knowledge to be very truthful, so that people can continue to refer to them.
Dr. Takelani, may you please present your PowerPoint presentation for us?
Yes, I was just trying to give you the background.
The background.
I was still going to go to the, so that people can know, because this information is not in the slides, but I think it is very relevant for people who have joined to understand where the trustworthiness is coming from. But anyway, thank you very much. Let me quickly go to the slides. So the first slide, as you can see there, it says, what is trustworthiness in qualitative studies? Since your study is going to contribute to the body of knowledge, the process of knowledge production must be very clear to the readers. One must be able to explain how conclusions were arrived at, starting from the problem statement, conceptualization, and up until to major findings of the study. That is very, very important. That is very, very important. People need to know, when we talk of the major findings that the study was able to produce, these major findings, how were they arrived at? There must be clear connection between the time when the problem was conceptualized up until the time when the findings are concluded at. So trustworthiness or rigor, which is thoroughness of study, refers to the degree of confidence in data, interpretation, methods used to ensure the quality of study, credibility of the study, or the confidence in the truth of the study, and therefore the findings is the most important criterion. So if one does not have confidence, let me just give you an example here about the confidence in data. Say you are a researcher who happened to do a study, but that study somehow, because you know, we researchers have got our angles in which we would want our students to take in terms of, you know, whatever research they are doing. So sometimes you may be given an angle which you are not that much comfortable, and that will translate into how you are going to collect the data. That will translate into how you are going to interpret the data and the methods that you are going to use to ensure that there is quality of data that you are using. So it is important that you need to be very confident in the data. So how do you have that degree of confidence? It's when you know what you want to do, when you know the right people that you are going to use for your study in terms of collecting data from. So that is very, very important. So the degree to which the findings of the research study could be confirmed by other researchers. You know, you must, you know, when you are confident about something that you are doing, you are confident because it is clear, there is clear connection from the beginning, and people can see how certain decisions were arrived at, and they can boldly also refer to the decisions based on my study, because everything is clear from the beginning up until the end. So trustworthiness refers to quality, authenticity, truthfulness of findings of qualitative research. It relates to the degree of trust or confidence readers have in results. So when you have conducted a study, people or the readers who happen to read your research should have confidence, should be able to say, yeah, these are the results that can be used. These are the recommendations that one can try to implement to alleviate whatever problems you may be having. So, but if the information, you know, arrived at, if the findings that have been arrived at are not clear, people may not even have confidence in using such kind of information. So as we move on, there are elements of trustworthiness. When we talk about trustworthiness, it involves trust. So you can only be trusted as a researcher when your work is very clear, when you are consistent in the manner in which you explain yourself throughout the research. You need to be very consistent. It should be easy to the reader to follow your findings, and it should be easy for the reader to be able to implement the recommendations that you should have arrived at based on the findings. So then you also need to have an ability to deliver without fail. I mean, always keeping to your word. This is, you may be asking yourself, why this here? Yes, I mean, we are talking about the elements of trustworthiness, which is very, very important if we apply them into research. We need, you know, all the researches that we conduct, you will agree with me, they have got time plans, they have got work plans, so we must stick to those work plans, unless otherwise there are some certain, you know, circumstances which might come and prevent us from doing according to the work plan. But if we are able to deliver according to the time that we said would deliver certain things, you know, we tend to be trusted by the people. So we need to be reliable. People should be able to rely on us. They should be able to rely on the data. They should be able to rely on the findings that we come up with by our respective, you know, studies that we conduct. Because the only way that we can be reliable, you know, is when we are able to show the different ways in which this knowledge has been produced. If it is clear to the readers, then they will be able to trust whatever comes out of that particular study. So we need to be very transparent, clear to the readers, so that they can be able to make easier connections in all the aspects in the study. They should be able to make connections from the conceptualization of the problem statement up until to the way the methods and approaches, strategies were picked up for the research. That information should be very transparent, and the readers should be able to make connections between those different aspects to see, oh, how were the methods of analysis arrived at. That should be very, very, very clear, and we need to be very accountable as researchers. So for our studies to be trusted, we need to be very accountable to whatever we put into the project. We need to be very accountable, be able to explain how we have arrived at specific decision. So it is not all about, you know, the different aspects of proposal or research. You know, we talk about the research strategies. It's not all about just mentioning a strategy. It is not all about mentioning an approach. You need to show to the readers how you have arrived at choosing this particular approach.
Excuse me, Dr. Takalani.
Yes.
Is it possible that you could share your slides with us, please?
I don't know if you are not seeing them. Are you not seeing the slides?
No, I'm not seeing the slides on my side.
So then let me get out of this mode, because for all along I've been sharing. I thought the slides were being shared to you. What do I do now?
Next to the read leave button is a small arrow. You need to click on the arrow.
Next to where?
The red leave button is a small arrow pointing upwards. If you click on that arrow, there is share screen or share window.
I'm trying to look at that. Okay, thank you. There we are. Then I go to this and I look for the presentation.
Here we go. Thank you so much.
Okay. I've been on this slide. I've been saying that as researchers, we need to be very...
Can you please, excuse me, can you please put it in presentation mode?
Okay. Thank you. Yes. I think it is now clear in the presentation mode. Yes. Yeah, I've been talking about accountability to say that as researchers, we need to be very accountable to our to whatever we put into the research, be it the strategy, be it the design, be it the approach. We need to show to the readers why we have arrived at choosing those different aspects, so that, you know, at the end of the day, they can be able to trust whatever comes out of this study. And then, you know, these are very strong, you know, concept in trustworthiness, you know, rigor and trustworthiness in qualitative studies. What is rigor and trustworthiness in qualitative research? The authors further defined rigor as the strengths of the research design. The strengths of the research design and the appropriateness of the method to answer the questions. That can only happen when you are able to show and justify why you have chosen a particular design, why you have chosen a particular method of analysis, why you have chosen a particular method of data collection. So if you are able to justify your choices, then you are beginning to show rigor in whatever you are doing. There must be a flow from the problem identified to the research design and to the approach. And for example, if I'm trying to indicate the flow here, for one to use exploratory research design, the problem must be in a form of exploration. So there's no way you can want to explore in a descriptive kind of a research. So there would be some contradictions there. So that is why it is important, to clear everything, to show to the readers the reason why I have chosen to use this particular strategy is because of 1, 2, 3. This is how it is going to be useful to my current study. And then we move on to, so this is just a summary of all the aspects of trustworthiness that we are going to be talking about. You look at the credibility there, you look at the transferability, dependability, confirmability, and all what needs to happen in there. The member checking, including, you have to include study material, thick descriptions of data, research triangulation, you cannot rely only on one type of method in collecting data. You must triangulate. Sometimes there has to be some field notes taken during the interviews. Sometimes, the audio voices are recorded, so that at the end of the day, you should be able to look at your notes as you transcribe. You look at, you listen to the audios, and then you try to correlate, so that at the end of the day, you come up with something that is a true reflection of what you got from the participants themselves. That is what we call credibility. And transferability, it refers to being able, or the study being able to transfer its findings, to a similar. You will understand that when we conduct research at a specific geographical area. Say, let me just use secondary schools. Maybe you are conducting a study in a secondary school in village Y, and there is another secondary school in village X. So the findings that you get, that you may come to have for the secondary school in village Y may be transferable to the secondary school in village Z, because maybe the people share the same culture, they are a homogeneous grouping of people, and possibly the problems that they experience are almost similar. That is why it will be easy for the researcher to transfer instead of reinventing the wheel and do another research looking at the same problems, which would have been researched in the other community or village. So it is important to be able to show this in your research, to say, how are you going to address transferability in this particular study? How are you going to make your findings known and applicable to other similar situations or contextual information that is similar to other similar situations? And the dependability, those things there, I'm still going to talk to them, each of them, but this is just a schematic representation of what is going to be detailed in the coming slides. Moving on to the first one, which is credibility. Credibility refers to confidence that can be placed in the truth of the research findings, confidence that can be placed in the truth of the research findings. It needs to be very clear how you have arrived at this particular conclusion. Let me just give you a practical example. If somebody comes to you and he or she would want to share information with you, and then you ask, no, my friend, where did you get this information from? And your friend begins to touch here and there, then you know this is not the type of information credible that I can listen to. You will just listen because it's your friend, but you're not going to do anything about it. You're not even going to share it with another person because there is no truth in it. So the same applies to credibility. It refers to the confidence that can be placed in the truth of the research findings. Credibility establishes whether the research findings represent plausible information drawn from the participants' original data, and it is correct interpretation of the participants' original views, which is why you will hear as we move on discussing different other aspects of trustworthiness. You will hear that it is important to do what we call member checking, where you go back to the participants with your transcribed data and show to them, no, this is what you were able to give me as information relating to the different questions that you asked them, and when you do so, it's like you want to validate whether what you have put into your transcriptions it's a true reflection of what is original views from the participants, because sometimes due to other things such as reflexivity, you may find, no, you cloud the judgment, and then you misinterpret the information that you get from the participants because of the reflexivity issues, which we'll talk about later in other slides that are coming. So credibility addresses the issue of whether consistency exists between the views of the participant and the researcher's representation of them. There must be consistency. You will remember in the elements, I talked about the consistency. So there must be that consistency between when I look at my transcriptions, and when I go back to the participants who have given information that led to these transcriptions, there must be consistency between the original views from the participants and the transcribed or transcriptions that I'll be having. So that is very, very important to note. Consistency must exist between their views and the transcribed data. Through interviews, the researcher must remain neutral and objective and refrain from suggesting opinions during the interviews to avoid moderator bias. That is what I was talking about, the reflexivity issues. I'll just give an example for you to understand. If you are an HIV person, you are suffering from HIV, and then you are conducting a study, around the HIV, it is so easy. Without knowing, you may find your asking questions for your own benefit as an individual, because you are in the same space as those people that you want to get information from. So you need to be very neutral, be objective as possible. Don't suggest things, directions and opinion to your participants, because at the end of the day, the information that they are going to give you would not be what they would have given you had you not suggested certain things or certain opinions to them. So you need to guard against what we call moderator bias. So credibility is achievable by using that there is a prolonged, by ensuring that there is prolonged engagement until data saturation. Sometimes, I remember I was supervising one of my students, and he went out and collected data, coming back with the transcribed data, and then I looked at the data. But in the proposal, he said he would spend some time with the participants. But when I looked at the transcriptions, because I said to him, please just go and do, this will be for practice session, but just go and collect data from one person, one participant, come back with the information, transcribe it. So it was just a matter of question and answer, one page. I then said, no, this is a problem. So you need to be engaged with the participants for a longer time. Try to get information from different angles until you start getting similar information. Then you realize, no, you have exhausted everything. They have given you everything that you wanted to hear. But you can't just go there for 20 minutes. In a master study, go there, it's an interview session, 20 minutes, you are done. And you spoke about the in-depth interview sessions. Where is that thing if you spend less than 20 minutes interviewing a person? So the more you spend time, the more credible your information becomes, the more richer it becomes. You need to engage seriously for longer time. And you also do these things called, validating transcriptions with the participants. We have already spoken about it. And one other thing which is very, very important, colleagues, is that, if you want to ensure credibility, when you go to start, having your interviews with the participants, make sure that you brief them. You don't just make an appointment and then you show up and begin to hit them with the questions. That is not the way to do it. You must debrief them. They must know what you are doing and what you expect from them. Sometimes, they should also know the types of questions that you may want to ask them, because sometimes they may not be able to remember a lot if they are hearing questions for the first time. But if they know of the questions in advance, it becomes easier, so that they can also give you more detailed and comprehensive responses to your questions, which is part of the thick descriptions of the processes. And as we move on, interviews and focus group discussions should be tape recorded and transcribed verbatim to enhance accuracy of the data. I think this is very clear. So because at the end of the day, what you are going to do, because you have triangulated, if you look at what I've just said here, you have triangulated in terms of data collection. Some information were gathered through tape record, and some were, you were able to do some field notes there. Maybe you were videotaping, all those three methods of data collection. When you sit down, trying to check with all of them and see if there is correlation, then you are able to have accurate data that you would have wanted to have. Transcripts are compared with audio recordings, exactly what I've been saying, to ensure accuracy of the data captured. In addition, there should be a clear and systematic description of the research path. Including the research design, the collection of data methods, and the steps taken to manage and analyze and report that. This information should be clearly indicated so that the readers can see where you started and how you have arrived where you have arrived. It is important. Credibility of the study can further be enhanced through reflexivity. You see, I spoke about reflexivity earlier. And this can be achieved by researchers describing and interpreting their own experiences as a researcher in order to control bias. Because that moderator bias that I spoke about is like a control bias. Otherwise, if it is not said to the participants, the readers, when they read, they realize you were in the very same space as the participants. So there is likelihood, if you did not disclose that, there is likelihood that you might have influenced their responses. But if you are in the same spaces as your participants, it is important for you to disclose that and also make sure that you don't influence, you don't interfere in the manner in which you would want the participants to respond to your questions. Then moving on to, you see now, the thing. From my side, it does, okay, thank you. Okay, now we are coming to confirmability. Confirmability refers to the steps taken by the researcher to demonstrate that findings emerge from the data and not their own predispositions. So it is very, very important. So and if this is not addressed, like what most of the students would do, they will pick maybe two. They will say, no, okay, for this study, for aspects of trustworthiness, I will choose credibility and confirmability. What about other aspects? Because, you know, they are equally important as confirmability. What about transferability? Because it is equally important as dependability and all other aspects of trustworthiness. So it is important to indicate the steps taken by the researcher to demonstrate that the findings emerge from data and not their own predisposition, because there is that moderator bias which might play a very role in terms of shaping the responses from the participants. So that is why you need to show to the readers or no. After collecting data from these participants, I went to each of them with a transcribed data and showed to them to say, I was here 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and I asked you questions, and this is how you have responded. And sometimes it works for your advantage. It works better for your advantage, because sometimes you may find, or no, they have, once you left, they had remembered of another important information that they should have given you. So when you go back, you are able to edit your transcribed data depending on the other additional information that you'll be getting from the participants, because there is that possibility that when you go back to them and you ask them, you know, this is what you said to me when I asked you these questions, they may be able, they may look at it and then, you know, said, okay, yeah, you are right, you have captured it very well, but I may want also to add on 1, 2, 3. So the more they add, the more the data becomes rich, and the more you will be able to make decisions out of a rich data than out of, you know, superficial collected data. Going back to the participants that you interviewed with, ensure that the data you collected and transcribed is the correct one. You are going back to confirm that what you captured is the correct information you obtained from the participants. Confirmability is achieved by ensuring credibility. You see now, this is very important. They said confirmability is achieved by ensuring credibility, transferability, and dependability. Can you see now, you don't have to pick one, because if you pick confirmability, cannot be achieved by itself. It depends on the other aspects such as credibility, transferability, and dependability. So you need to address all the aspects of trustworthiness if you are to handle this aspect in a very correct way. So to ensure confirmability of the study, a detailed account of the research processes should be provided. This will enable readers to determine whether the data analysis procedures were carried out appropriately. So it is important that, you know, you detail the account. I mean, you give a detailed account of the research processes, that everything that, you know, when we started talking about, you know, the research strategy, the research design, and all these other things, it should be very clear, so that the readers can even judge by themselves to say, yes, indeed, there is some truthful in the manner in which this study and the findings were arrived at. The researcher will ensure confirmability by developing an audit trail. This is very important, an audit trail, which will allow other researchers to trace the course of the study step by step through decisions made and procedures described. The researcher will also use participants' verbatim quotes. That is what we do to support interpretation of data, to show how true the researcher is on interpreting participants' perspective. You will see when we do our researches, there is a chapter called presentation of the findings. You know, it is in that chapter where we begin to show this confirmability, because what we are saying there, we look at what the participants have said, and then, you know, and try to summarize their responses, and give such, you know, short description, and to prove that it is not a description that has been manufactured from my head. Then I must as a researcher try to put in some, verbatim responses from the participant to show that, these are the participants that gave me the information that led to the short description that I've written above. So that is very, very important. In order to enable the readers of the research report to develop a thorough understanding of the chosen methods and their effectiveness, the research design and its implementation must be described. The evidence of a decision trail at each stage of the research process should be documented. The evidence of a decision trail. When we come to research approaches, you need to take a decision. This research that I'm conducting will be doable through this particular approach. But then, you must give reasons as to why that particular approach. You must be able to justify. So you must be able to give evidence. This approach might have been used in similar topics as this one. Hence, you are also thinking of using it in the current study. So such kind of evidence should always be there. This is to provide the reader with evidence of the decisions and choices made regarding the theoretical and methodological issues throughout the study. As we move on with the dependability, in fact, we are moving on to dependability now. So according to Brink, Van der Walt and Van Rensburg 2018, dependability refers to the provision of evidence such that if it were to be repeated with the same or similar participants in the same or similar. So this one, if you look at it, if you were understanding me from the beginning, it looks more or less the same as what I said in credibility of the study. It's what I said in credibility of the study, because it is all about trying to find out or know if this is a village where I am conducting research from, and there is a neighboring village which is constituted of the people who might be homogeneous in some nature, who might be experiencing similar problems. The recommendations that I made from these particular villages may they not be applicable to the neighboring village. You look at because these are the villages which are adjacent to each other, and the likelihood is that they may be experiencing more or less the same problems. And if you have done a research on a particular village, then you may be able to transfer. It's more or less like that. And to ensure dependability in this study, raw data of field notes, recordings, transcribed interviews will be kept for verification by study supervisors. You see, now the supervisors are beginning to show up here, because at the end of the day, we don't have to rely on an information or on findings that were arrived at by a research conducted by the student alone. The student is deemed not to know everything. So we as supervisors have to be there on most occasions. We need to have continuous meetings with the students, trying to look at their work and giving inputs, directions, and all the likes. So they play a very important role here, and it should come out through my doing this particular research. My supervisors from time to time have been involved in assisting, in supervising me, so that at the end of the day, this is not a 1% show. This is not a show of a student alone. It was a joint effort between the supervisors and the students. So it is very, very important that you need to specify that under dependability. As we continue, to ensure dependability, the researcher is expected to give the reader sufficient information needed to determine how dependable the study and researcher are. For example, the use of qualitative content analysis for the focus group. Data analysis will involve data several times, trying to make sense out of it, and this will facilitate the making of valid inferences from the text to their context, with the aim of providing new insights, more understanding of a phenomena, and informed practical actions. Dependability refers to the consistency and the reliability of the research findings and the degree to which the research procedures are documented, allowing someone outside the research to follow, audit, and critique the research process. So basically that is all about dependability. Moving on to transferability, which might be our last aspect here, and we have touched a bit of it in the previous aspects of trustworthiness. So transferability refers to how well the findings fit outside the study situation. It has been argued that all good research needs to produce some ideas and results that can be applied generally. So even if you are doing a research which is not meant for generalization, somehow there must be that element which says the findings can somehow be applicable to other situations, especially when those situations are similar to the situation that came up with the recommendations and those findings. So the concern is more on the richness. The concern is more on the depth of the data and making sure that the findings can be transferable and have some relevance when applied to other contexts, situations, or individuals. Transferability refers to the level that the outcomes from the data can be conveyed to other settings. The results, the outcomes from this particular research in this particular area can be conveyed to other areas or settings which are somehow related or which are somehow experiencing more or less the same problems or challenges. Most qualitative research studies are conducted in communities that may be closer to each other. In many instances, these communities share same characteristics and other commonalities. If the situation is like this, there will be no need for another research to be conducted in the neighboring community because the results and recommendations may be transferable. That is what we need to be fighting for, because you cannot come and do a research whose findings cannot be, I mean, in a particular municipality, whose findings cannot be somehow transferable to other municipalities, especially when those municipalities are within the same geographical area. So the results somehow have to be, and the recommendations somehow have to be transferable to other areas, and you must indicate how that is going to be done in your study. You don't just have to go there and explain and give us the explanation of transferability, but you need to show to us how you are going to make sure that these results, how you are going to make sure that these recommendations can be transferable to other situations which are of similar context. You need to indicate that. And then, in conclusion, it is important to always have your studies to be assessed for trustworthiness. Nowadays, students have tendencies to fabricate or manufacture falsifiable data. So this is not doing our knowledge production any good. Let's go and begin to do things the right way for us as a nation to be proud of the knowledge that we produce for public consumption. I hope this presentation opened some of your eyes, and we might have learned one thing or another. I think with this, I can say thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much.
That was a really interesting presentation, Dr. Takalani.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed listening to your examples, and it was really interesting. Thank you, everyone. If you are happy with the presentation, if you can give us some hand claps, that would be appreciated. We can go to questions and answers now. Additionally, if you check in the chat box, there's a number of notifications. The first notification is that we are requesting that you please complete the evaluation form. Also, we have a YouTube link as well as a Facebook link, and we would love you to please check us out on there. I will copy the evaluation link now. You may turn on your audio and ask questions should you want any additional clarification. I'm checking through the chat now. Let me see. So far, there is thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions? You may put it in the chat box, or you can turn on your audio and ask it. We have Prof. Makatu saying thank you for the lovely presentation. It was really easy to follow and relevant. I'm just going to share with you the links for YouTube as well as Facebook. Rindani saying thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was very informative. Colleen is saying that she appreciates how you connected rigor to communicating findings and not just for academia, but also participants and building trust beyond data. Thank you so much for that comment, Colleen. Okay, Hasina, no problem. I will share with you the YouTube link as well as the Facebook link and email. Yes, Dr. Mapura?
There is also a hand from Takalani.
Takalani, you may go ahead and switch on your audio and ask the question.
Oh, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Ajay. Yo, it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. I wish I had this kind of a presentation when I started my research project. Anyway, I just wanted to get clarity because I heard you talking about prolonged engagement. The way I understood it, or I'm not sure if maybe I'm a little bit confused. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, because to me it sounded like prolonged engagement. It can also involve like building a rapport before you go and do the data collection, real data collection. Maybe just to make sure that you don't just go there, without having that kind of rapport before. Because to me, it sounds like the way you explain it, it's like not giving more time on the day of when you are doing the interview. I'm not sure if you understand my question.
Yes, I
Before the student can go, maybe could they have 1 or 2 contacts so that the participant gets that kind of, let's say maybe getting to know this person, also studying the context, so that it's like building that rapport for the sake of cooperation and also to relieve the anxiety on the day of data collection.
Yes, you are very right, Wombedzi. You are very right. You will realize I also spoke about the issue of debriefing of the participants. So when you show up trying to explain to the participants what the study or what the study is all about and how the interviews are anticipated, it is during that time also you can also build rapport. By the time you maybe you can do that as you are busy negotiating for entry. Sometimes you may have to there may be a need for you to meet the actual participants physically, so before the interviews can take place. And if that happens, that is where you can even begin to build rapport prior the interviews, which would make it very easier during the day or during the time of the interviews, so that this particular person will be knowing you already. The participant would be knowing a bit about what the study is all about. And I think you are very right. Building rapport is part of this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Takalani. It was well explained and it is now very clear to me.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay, we have a really good question here. What are the implications for cultural practices where agreement is upheld when doing member checking? Some participants would rather agree than differ, even if they think differently, because it is what is culturally expected. So when you're going back to the community, Dr. Takalani, how do you engage through member checking with addressing it from a cultural perspective?
Yeah, let me give that from myself as let me use myself as an example. I did a study on my participants were traditional healers. So there was no way, when I went, because what I did was to go to them first before we agree on a particular date for the interviews. So when you go there, you should not be seen as somebody who just want to collect data. You must be seen as somebody who believes in them, and in all respect. Don't be seen as somebody who just want to collect data for the fulfillment of the study, or maybe for the data to be used for other things. Be open to them, so that they can be very open, even if culturally there are certain things that are sensitive. But looking at the way you have approached them, you may find out that without knowing, unconsciously they are giving out what they are not supposed to be giving out, looking at culture. So the first approach is very, very important. So it will allow you, when you go back, it will be much easier. You related very well with the person. You indicated the person that you were on the same space as the participant. So when you go back to them, it becomes so easy. I remember there were some of them, I was even asking them questions to say, give me information about the ingredients which are put into this particular powder, which is given to people so that they eat and be able to forget quicker the bereaved. Then they said, no, Takaran, we cannot, we are not allowed. We not just know that there is this kind of a powder which is prepared, and we cannot tell because of culture. They even said, we respect you very much, but certain information cannot be divulged. Then I must respect that. I think the respect that you accord to them when you are interviewing them will make it easier for you to go back and even get more additional information. Thank you.
We have 5 minutes left. Is there anyone who would like to ask any additional questions? YouTube link has been shared. Robin, please check the chat. The YouTube link has been shared. Please may you complete our evaluation form. It's our pleasure, Robin. I think that this presentation has been really useful and informative. And we just want to say thank you to Dr. Takalani for all the effort that he has put into the presentation, and for the lovely way in which he linked the information to practical examples of how it is that we should be doing trustworthiness and how we should be working in a culturally informed manner in the community. Sharon is saying thank you for the very informative presentation that was really wonderfully supported by examples. So we are within the last 4 minutes of the presentation. If there are any questions, please raise your hand. You can go ahead and ask. Alternatively, you can put it in the chat box.
Hey, Fatima, my hand has been up.
I apologize, I don't see your hand, but you may go ahead.
Can I ask the last question? Okay,
By
Dr.
all means,
Takaran.
please go.
Yes.
Let's say, suppose, I collected data during COVID-19. Actually, we need to be realistic. During COVID-19, and I heard you saying that I need to go and do member check within maybe after 2 weeks. And then maybe I find that during that time we were in level, then I say, yes, level 5 or level 4 then, which prohibits contact. Then maybe is there a specific time? Let's say if you say 2 weeks, can't I do it even if it can be after 2 weeks because of COVID-19 rules? And my second question is, you talked about debriefing. Can you take us through maybe just to explain briefly, because I think was not, I didn't understand it well, debriefing.
Okay, thank you very much. Debriefing is like, maybe if the very common word concept may be informed consent. You see, maybe if you look at debriefing from informed consent, because what happens in informed consent, you explain everything about the research and the objectives. They know that this research is for the fulfillment of a particular degree, and this is what you hope to achieve through this particular study that you are undertaking. So the debriefing that I'm talking about is related to informed consent in the way that I'm trying to explain. So that is how you need to, they need to know what, you can't just go to them and say, no, okay, my topic is 1, 2, 3, and then I'm asking you questions. You need to give them a short description of the whole study, looking at the problem, sharing with them the problem that is there, and your eagerness to try and come up with the solution. I mean, to try and come up with the measures to deal with such kind of problems, and that it cannot be possible if you don't get information from people like them. You are debriefing them so that by the time they consent, they are consenting to something that they are quite sure of, they know of, and something that has been explained to them in a detailed manner. So I think if you look at it from the informed consent, you would understand it much better. So that is one. So the other question that you raised was in reference to say the lockdown rules, regulations, to say you have collected data, and maybe after collection of that data, there is what we call the countries moved at level 5. If that happens, because it is beyond our control, there's nothing that we can do. But we will have to wait for some time when we are moved to lower levels, so that we can be able to go back to them to verify and validate the data that we collected from them. So if it's because of COVID, there's nothing. If it does, we are not allowed to be meeting with other people, then we just have to follow that one, unless if the participants are smart people that you can even do the meeting like this, the Teams one, where you can give them data, then they open, and you meet in a meeting like online. You can also do that one. That is when the participants are smart and they have enough data and have smartphones through which you can download these apps and be able to meet online and validate the information with them. I think that is what I can say regarding that one. Thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you too.
Okay.
We're going to have electricity cuts because of load shedding. It is currently 1 o'clock. I do see one additional question in the chat. Dr. Takalani, can you advise, would you like to address this question, or do you think we should conclude due to the fact that electricity is going to be cut on your side at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, at 1 o'clock it will be cut off. I don't know if I will be able to answer the the person who asked the question. But let's quickly look at the question. Maybe I can answer it in a few words.
So the question is, what are the ethical considerations that we need to take into account during COVID-19 when collecting data? Unfortunately, Dr. Takalani has load shedding at 1 o'clock in the area where he is residing, and we are unable to have him online with us. So Robin, that is a really excellent question. Unfortunately, the presenter is not here right now. But maybe for planning in next year, we can think about doing a presentation on ethical considerations in research. And one of the sub-aspects could be around COVID-19. Would that be okay with you? Okay, great stuff. So I'd like to just say thank you to everybody for coming today to this wonderful presentation. Based on the feedback that we have received, we really appreciate the votes of thanks. I would like to say goodbye to everybody. Next week, we will be having an APA referencing webinar, so we'll be sending out the invitation for that shortly. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.